It's UFC 178 Fight Week. Welcome into MMA Live. My name is Todd Grisham. Instead of letting humans tell you what's going to happen, we're going to go with the numbers game. And how about the numbers master? Reed Kuhn, coming to us from California. He is the author of Fightnomics. Tim Kennedy versus Yoel Romero. Will, what are the numbers saying is going to happen on Saturday night?
These guys are similarly matched, but Tim Kennedy, I think, is more dangerous on the mat despite the wrestling credentials of Yoel Romero. Now, if these guys stand in trade, it could be anybody's ballgame here. Romero is extremely powerful, but he's also more susceptible, I think. But I think the grappling is going to play a very important role here, and Tim Kennedy has transitioned his wrestling into the cage more effectively than Romero. Despite the Olympic background, he just hasn't really utilized his wrestling, and Kennedy finds a way to get to mount. He takes the back. He's got submissions and strikes, and he's very dominating on the ground. And I think that that will probably be his game plan to neutralize, the threat of the power striking from Romero. So pretty close matchup on paper, but I see certain edges that are telling me that Kennedy should have the edge on the ground.
Now, when you break down a fight like this, how much of your personal opinion is influenced in these numbers, or do you completely remove yourself out of it?
Well, this is an example that it's hard to do that. Tim is a friend, and he's also a client, so he's getting scouting reports from me and has in the past. But I'm trying to make an assessment just based on the metrics. That's why I line them up this way. But it's impossible to eliminate all bias. I just have to be careful about how I make my conclusions.
I know where you're coming from, Reed. I consider our next guest, Brett Okamoto, a quasi-friend. Brett, do you agree with the computer and the robots? Tim Kennedy wins on Saturday.
I agree with the numbers. I think if you've watched Tim Kennedy fight, you don't need numbers to let you know that this guy is not a slick knockout artist. He just isn't. He's been fighting for a long time. He doesn't generate that kind of power. It's really just not his game. I think he's comfortable with that. He doesn't try to be that. He's a guy who wants to take the other guy down, and then he's a wet blanket on the floor. And I say that as a compliment. This is a guy who takes you down and just exhausts you. Nobody can get out from under this guy. At least very few people can get back up to their feet once he's taken you down. So I think that is the game plan. Move your head a lot. You do not want to get caught with a straight left by Yoel Romero, who throws with a lot of power. But it's sort of a weird situation where you have, on one hand, you have Yoel Romero, who is a silver Olympic medalist in wrestling, and you have Tim Kennedy across the cage, but it's actually Tim Kennedy who's going to be the wrestler in this fight. I think he's going to be looking for chances to take Romero down and keep him on the floor, as he always does in his fights.
There you have it. The robots and the humans are in agreement. Tim Kennedy probably gets a win this Saturday night at UFC 178. Make sure and keep it right here. ESPN.com for complete coverage of that fight card as well as post-fight reaction. Until next time, I'm Todd Grisham. Keep fighting.